Coming up this week, we report from the Bristol Sound and Vision show. Mark gets excited about the Nintendo Switch launch this week, and we review John Wick Chapter 2 and cover the latest movie news. So, welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 27th of February, and joining me on this edition, our assistant editor, Steve Withers.
I am the ultimate badass, the state of the badass art.
Audio reviewer, Ed Selley.
How could they cut the power, man? They're animals.
And special guest star, Mark Botwright.
Have you ever been mistaken for a man?
So, welcome along to another podcast. Did you like the new theme music? It's a little bit different. I think Steve got his way there with I think it was skinny white guys on guitars that did the new music, so you'll be happy with that one, Steve.
Excellent. That's good news.
Yeah.
That's what I have to hear.
Okay.
In this electro rubbish.
Well, there is a bit of electro in there. I had to keep Ed happy as well. So anyway.
Damn straight.
Right, so it's the Oscars today. We're recording this podcast on a Sunday evening. The reason we're recording this podcast on a Sunday evening is because there was the Bristol Sound and Vision show this weekend, and Steve and Ed went along on Friday and wasted 8 hours wandering around the hotel. They've made some videos. The videos are starting to go up on the website now, so if you check the homepage, you should be able to see the videos as they go up. And we're going to come on to what was all great and not, the highs and lows of the Bristol show in a little bit, but obviously it's breaking news as we are going to air, as they say on the TV, although we're recorded and you're probably listening to this on a Friday and not the Monday. But as we are recording this, sadly Bill Paxton has passed away at the age of 61, which is not old at all, and the press are reporting that it was complications following some surgery.
Yeah.
Although they don't say what kind of surgery, whether that was plastic surgery or if it was medical surgery. But shocking age, 61, that's no age whatsoever. He's all through my childhood. I'm thinking about looking at the IMDb listings and so on. I didn't realise just what role he played in my life in terms of films.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of our favourite films over the years, whether we realised it or not. Going right back to playing the punk at the beginning of the Terminator when he threatens Schwarzenegger with a flick knife, I think. So it's the immortal line, Human, I think isn't it? And obviously Aliens, and quite a few Cameron films, actually, because of course he was also in True Lies, very funny in that. And he played a relatively small role in Titanic, in the bookend pieces particularly, but a key role. So, you know, he's been in one of the most successful films of all time. But he's also in one of my all-time favourite films, which is Apollo 13. He's great in that. He's just a solid actor. He was a great, solid actor. He always delivered good performances. I loved him in Near Dark. He was brilliant in that. He was really funny as the obnoxious brother in Weird Science.
Did he ever get a starring role?
Yes.
Was Twister his only one? And was that his film, though, or was it more Helen Hunt's film?
Helen Hunt was a bigger name, definitely, at the time. Off the back
but
of
I think it wouldn't. Twister would have a significant reduction in its charm without him. It is in part made by the fact that he's not absolutely he was in the leading role, but he's not a sort of classic lantern-jawed hero. There was an element of confused weatherman, which I thought he did very well in that.
Yeah, he was very good in that, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's breakthrough role as well in that film, actually.
I mean, can I just say, I mean, from a personal level, that used car salesman in True Lies is just magnificent.
It's been really good tonight on Twitter. That has come up as a meme a few times on Twitter tonight. The car salesman bit, that's brilliant.
The vet gets them wet.
Yeah.
Also, there's something else that cropped up on Facebook. Phil, you might have seen this, but it's a piece of trivia that I didn't realise. Bill Paxton is the only actor to have been killed on screen by a Terminator, an Alien, and a Predator.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't know that.
Because Lance Henriksen is almost the same, except that as an android, it's debatable whether he was killed.
What was his death in Aliens?
Well, he's killed by an alien,
didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was dragged, wasn't he?
Yeah, spoilers.
Yeah, he died. Everyone dies. I'll tell you, there was a film where he does have the leading role. It's a really, really good film, but a little scene movie. But if you get a chance to check it out, please do, because I recommend it highly. Which is called One False Move, which was made in '92. And he plays a sheriff in over his head, frankly, with some really dodgy, really nasty criminals turning up in his town. But he delivers. He's basically the lead of that, and he delivers a great performance. He was a solid, really good actor at times. He delivers some great performances, both comic and serious. I mean, he stole Aliens, didn't he? Pretty much. And all the best lines in that film are his lines. But he was got a bit of a renaissance man because he was in a band. He played in a number of music videos with his band that were directed by James Cameron because they were friends. And also, I believe he was also a costume designer at one point early in his career, working for Roger Corman, which is where he met Cameron, and he did costume design for all things. So, a great guy, and I'd be sorely missed. And 61 is way too young.
He always struck me as someone.
Sorry, he was also at the Kennedy assassination. He wasn't. I'm not suggesting for a second he's in some way responsible. He was at Dallas.
Oh, you're right. He was in Dealey Plaza as a kid, wasn't he?
Mm.
Yeah, you're right.
Always struck me as someone who would actually get better as he aged. So it's kind of a bit of a galling death in that sense. In that, if you saw his performance in Hatfields and McCoys, the kind of TV miniseries, it was excellent and perfectly straight role there.
Yeah.
And
that was just Ed opening a beer. Carry on, Mark.
No, he could play the comic roles very well, and he had a kind of strange charm and a real charisma, even in small roles, though. I don't think any film, everything was always memorable with him in. Any film was made better by his inclusion, I think. Very much a sad one, that one.
Yeah, I'll drink to that. I mean, I'm going to drink anyway, but, basic principle.
Welcome back to Sunday night recording.
I tell you what, Phil, since you mentioned it right at the very beginning that the Oscars are tonight in LA, presumably they're going to be hastily re-editing that reel they do of all the deaths this year to include Bill Paxton, given that they've probably got a few hours still to do it in.
You never know. They might be doing that. Where is it being held this year? Is it still in the Dolby Theatre or has it moved location yet again?
It was a Kodak Theatre at one point or something.
America.
Somewhere on the West Coast.
There seems to be quite a backlash at the minute against La La Land for some reason.
Yeah, there has been a bit of a backlash, actually, which is strange. I still think it's going to win. I just think the Academy is predominantly made up of aging actors who love a musical. So I still think it'll win. But yeah, there does seem to have been a bit of a backlash against it in the last few weeks, which is...
In what sense? In what sense is there a backlash? Just kind of critics' opinions?
A lot of negativity around it. A lot of people saying it doesn't really deserve to be there. It's overhyped. The critics got it wrong. That type of stuff, basically.
Yeah, there's always a worry when something's kind of slightly different. That the criticism will be that it's been rated for its novelty factor. That you get established actors singing and dancing, and you put on something that's notably different to 9 out of 10 films that are shown.
Yeah, the other thing I noticed today, I mean, I've had no interest whatsoever in the Oscars, so I didn't even know it was nominated, but I did catch a film review on BBC News, and then they had the Oscar stuff in that, and if you take La La Land out of it, it's really quite diverse and political this time around. A lot of the films in there are pretty heavy films, Steve. Heavy subject matter as well.
Yes, there is some interesting. There's some fairly heavy stuff. I mean, there's stuff that you just news Oscar bait. So things like Midnight, black, gay, poor, drug addiction, Oscar, or at least Oscar nomination. Black director as well, who's nominated and is the first black director in quite a while to be nominated for an Oscar. Hidden Figures is an interesting one. Again, I think there's a lot of perhaps a reaction to last year where there was a big campaign because everyone nominated for the main awards was white. People were pointing out there was no ethnic diversity. So you've got Fences, directed by Denzel Washington, again with the black cast, and Viola Davis, who probably will win Best Supporting Actress for it. You've got Hidden Figures, which is about the black women who were working in space program for NASA, who were mathematicians. That's sort of been a surprise hit, actually. You've got Lion, of course, the UK film about, UK-Australian movie, to be honest, with Nicole Kidman and Dev Patel. And then, interestingly, Hell or High Water has got a nomination for Best Film, which I have to say I bought last week. I haven't got around to watching it yet, but I just thought, I really need to check this movie out. And a film I watched this afternoon, Hacksaw Ridge. So a bit of a return for Mel Gibson to get a nominated film, given how, he's been a pariah for the last few years. So a very diverse and interesting selection of movies in there, all of which, certainly the ones that I've seen or read about, all seem worthy of winning. So I'd say ordinarily that would be quite a tough group, and maybe if there is a bit of a backlash against La La Land, although I think the voting probably happened long enough ago that it's too late now. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if La La Land does pull it off, because it's got the most nominations of any film since All About Eve.
14, isn't it? So that's
and I think Titanic as well had 14. So it's it's the most nominated film of all time, or joint most nominated film of all time. We'll see how it does.
Okay, so that was the sad passing of Bill Paxton, and of course the Oscars are happening just a few hours from our recording, so they will have happened by the time you have a listen in. So be interesting to see if Steve got anything right there or not. Who are you going with? Best film, Steve?
I think it will be La La Land. I think it will be Damien Chazelle as the director. I think Best Actress will probably go to Emma Stone for La La Land. I think Best Actor is definitely going to be Casey Affleck.
I really need to stop smoking during the podcast.
Oh, God.
2017 claims another one.
Yeah, we're sad to report that Steve Withers died on air this evening.
Podcasters we lost this year.
Pretty sure Casey Affleck's a shoe-in for Best Actor for Manchester by the Sea. And as I said, Viola Davis, I think, might probably pick up Best Supporting Actress. That's certainly the way the betting's going. And it looks like, based upon previous award ceremonies, the BAFTAs and all that sort of stuff beforehand, that seems the way it's going to go.
Okay, so it's unlikely that ourselves or our listeners will ever pick up an Oscar, but we can win stuff in our current competitions. Did you see what I did there? So let's go to Mark. And Mark, what competitions can our listeners win?
Right, we've got A Man for All Seasons on Blu-ray, and that runs till 20th of February, which is, will that be the day after this goes out?
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to have to
get a shift on.
Yeah, get a shift on as well. Also on 28th of February for closing is you can win a Sony 43XD80 UHD TV. That comes courtesy of AO. We've also got Quarry, the complete first season on Blu-ray, and that one runs for a bit longer till 3rd of March. And as ever, all these competitions are open to all eligible members resident in UK, Ireland and Isle of Man.
So basically, if you haven't listened to this podcast on the Monday up to Tuesday late afternoon, you've had it. In terms of competitions,
you can still win Quarry, and provided you listen to it before Friday.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah.
So it's not all bad.
Any competition winners, Mark?
None.
So let's move on to...
Technically, there would be some by the time we do the next one of these, won't there?
I wouldn't bet on that.
Right, so that's it for competitions, and should we wrap up the podcast now, or seeing as we've done some really sort of feature-length ones recently, or should we we'll keep going? So let's do some hardware news. So, like we said at the beginning of the podcast, Friday, Steve and Ed braved the traffic. I'm sick of hearing about the traffic, and they haven't even discussed it with me yet, but according to Twitter, it was bad. Everybody reporting that the traffic getting there was bad, Ed. But it's Bristol. It's a Bristol Sound and Vision show, although it should really be called the Bristol Sound Show.
Yes. I think that's fair. If you look at my report and Steve's report, it's a game. It's very much a game of two halves, Brian. I do think a rebalancing is needed, but yes, if you went there looking for the latest and greatest in visual products, you would have left sorely disappointed.
I guess the thing that we've got to explain at the start is that Audio T run the show. They have done for the last 30 odd years. I'm not sure if they've been called Audio T for all that length of time, but certainly they have been behind the show for the last 30 years. And the show is basically the product that they sell, or that they have... Jesus,
sorry,
what was that?
That was the cat.
All right. So generally the show and what's shown at the show is generally what they sell through their branches and what they distribute or distributors that work with them, which is why it is quite restrictive in terms of some brands that do show, because basically I think if you're not in the Audio T books, you're not basically allowed to show at Bristol, is certainly the feeling that we've always gotten from that, Steve, isn't it? And that kind of restricts what you can and can't do. The only people who have a free rein really to show what they want to show is the What Hi-Fi stand, and obviously What Hi-Fi have been sponsoring the show for a good 20 odd years, and they can basically do what they like in their demo, but I think everybody else really has to tie up to a party line, basically.
Yeah, I think that's true. But even so, it seems as if gradually over the last few years, I mean, maybe, and I'm pretty sure these products are sold by Audio because they're fairly universal ones, fairly generally well-known brands, but there seems to have been a gradual trailing off of certain areas, because definitely in the past, Bristol has been a great place for people to get a taste of things they probably wouldn't normally get a chance to see. Now, I appreciate that part of that was because of Alan Rosa, the late Alan Rosa, who was the heart and soul of many a Bristol show, and always put on a good demo. Often, incredibly. I mean, he would always say at the beginning, you're never going to be able to afford this stuff. This is 100 grand's worth of kit, but this is how good it can look. And certainly, 10 years ago, people would never have seen really well projected images off a top class projector, because most of the expensive projectors would have been in pubs or in boardrooms or in schools or classrooms.
I mean, there was a lot of UK firsts there. I mean, the first anamorphic lens to be used in a show, and first masking, auto masking screen being shown at a show in the UK and so on. So I mean, he always put on a great demonstration, and Alan was just so enthusiastic for it as well. I mean, he was just a big kid who loved the toys, and you had the latest toys shown, and that was infectious. And I think a lot of people appreciated that at the time. I know I certainly did. It was a good playoff against the the uber hi-fi stuff that you always get at the Bristol show, and it wasn't 50-50, but it felt more balanced because you were getting the uber home cinema along with the uber hi-fi. But it's definitely gone, and I haven't been in about 5 years, but just looking at the show and looking at who's there, it's definitely gone off to the hi-fi side and 2-channel side, and I'm going to kill that cat.
No, that was me, sorry.
I'm going to kill you. Yeah, it has. But interestingly, even though obviously they haven't been doing obviously Alan's no longer with us to do the big Sim 2 demos that he did in the past. If you look at the list of people that weren't there, that had been there in previous years, it was a very long list. In fact, it was longer than the list of people that were there from the AV side of things. So, there was surprisingly no JVC stand. JVC were there in a sense because their Z1 laser projector, 4K laser projector, was there as part of the What Hi-Fi demo, but JVC themselves weren't there. There was no Yamaha there on the sort of AV receiver side of things. Onkyo didn't have a stand there either. There was a very small Pioneer stand, but there were no demos being done by Pioneer. They just had a single receiver there just to sort of look at, and that was it. You had no Optoma there, and Optoma usually used to be at the show showing off their new projectors. Now, the reason they weren't showing anything was because they're still waiting for their 4K projector, DLP 4K projector, to come along. And that's the same boat that BenQ would find themselves in as well. But surprisingly, Epson weren't there either. But then they've got some cracking new projectors out, so I'm surprised they didn't take the opportunity to show their stuff, unless maybe they're not carried by Audio T, possibly, but I thought they were. It's a pretty extensive list of people, Noden and Marantz. So really, if you were looking for an old school demo at the show, you had one option. I mean, thankfully, Arcam delivered the goods, at least as far as doing a big, impressive, no holds barred demo, because they were using their AV860 AV processor, which does Dolby Atmos and DTSX and includes Dirac Live, and they were doing a full 7.2.4 Dolby Atmos demo. They had genuine overhead speakers. They built a rig to support them on. They were using a KEF speaker system. They had a Sony VW550 projector that you've recently reviewed, Phil, to do the video side of things. They had Oppo players, I think it was. They had their own amplification in there as well. They custom built subs for the event, and that looked and sounded fantastic. Really, I mean, they said they spent 10 hours EQing the room and everything, and 2 days building the whole thing, and certainly that delivered the goods. B&W also did a pretty good show. They were showing off their 800 Diamond Series speakers, $22.5 a pair, so not cheap. But they had two 800s at the front. They had a matching center speaker. They had 802s at the rears and a couple of DB 3D subs as well. And they did a quite interesting demo because they were doing initially just 2-channel stereo from a CD source. Sounded amazing. It was a really close mic. Did you hear it at all, Ed? Did you go to the demo?
Which demo was this one? Sorry.
B&W, Bill Bowers and Wilkins.
No, unfortunately, the nature of what I was trying to do for in terms of photography and stuff, the last thing they wanted was me in there during the demonstration doing it. So I'd rush in when people were going in and out between the demonstrations, take photos of stuff, and then move on to the next opportunist thing to do that for. I didn't hear Arcam, Bowers and Wilkins, or the Monitor Audio one on the 10th floor. So yeah, apologies on that. I was on a different wavelength, if you will.
So they did a 2-channel demo first, and that sounded really good. Obviously, you'd think that would be 22 grams for the speakers. They then brought in the subs and did a 2.1 or 2.2 demo. And they did a really good job because it was subtle. It wasn't overpowering. They just subtly used the subs to, even though these are big speakers and they had they went pretty low themselves, they just filled in the low end a little bit, and they did a really good job of that. And then they did a full 5.1 or 5.2 demo with the opening bombing run from Unbroken, which I'm very familiar with in Dolby Atmos. And I've got to say, whilst it isn't quite as immersive and you don't have that sense of three-dimensional space that you get with Atmos in a 5.1 demo, it was still bloody good. And it's when the zeros fly past you, the bass particularly was really impressive, and the sound of the machine guns are awesome. So that was a good demo. And then the only other real demo going on, apart from the monitor audio, which I didn't actually know about up on the 10th floor, like you had, I didn't see it, was Sony, who had their new 7.2 channel AV receiver, which does Dolby Atmos and DTSX, and also an HDR 4K TV and their new 4K Blu-ray player. Interestingly, they had a whole range of Sony Pictures Ultra HD Blu-rays on show, but we're actually using Deepwater Horizon as a demo disc, which is understandable because the soundtrack on that is absolutely stellar. And that was quite a good demo too, and an impressive little setup they had going on there. They were using KEF upward firing speakers for the overhead channels bouncing off the ceiling.
It's also worth, in an AV sense of the word, it wasn't running, although its little brothers were in the room next door. I did briefly listen to those and was quite impressed. That REL Model 25, I would like to spend some time with that, a collection of drum and bass and No Neighbours, because it's just insane. If we do review it, I think it needs to be sent to Phil, simply because I want to watch people try and carry it upstairs.
That was huge, wasn't it?
It's an absolute monster. It is the first subwoofer I've ever seen which made the ported box SVSs look compact. It's just an absolute...
It was the first sub I've seen that had its own gravity well to it. I think things were gravitating. It's bloody enormous. That was impressive. I also quite liked the look of... so I hadn't heard them, although you'd done the review quite recently of the Mission LX2s.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to hear those. And I got to say, massively impressed. I thought they sounded really nice. And they've got a center speaker coming out, the LXC, to match those if you were thinking of doing maybe a 5.1 or 7.1 system with these Mission speakers. So that's coming out soon. So from a AV perspective, that's an option you've got. But they did sound bloody good. As did, and I'm sure you can talk about this, Ed, the demo that Q Acoustics did with their Concept 500s.
Yes. I mean, obviously, I'm in a fortunate position. I got to hear the prototypes late last year. But yeah, Q Acoustics, I'll stick my neck out here. Q Acoustics has built an £8,000 to £10,000 loudspeaker for £3,600. That's my honest assessment of what they've done. I do think when people start being able to listen to them with their own equipment, test them in their own rooms, I think it's going to become clear just how good that speaker is and the level of engineering integrity that's gone into it. And I'm delighted to say that we're going to be having a look at a review pair, hopefully in the not too distant future, for AVForums. I'm psyched. I don't mind saying it. I don't know. It could be that if they do the things that they've been doing in these public demonstrations in my own space and so on and so forth, and I can work out a couple of attributes of what they're doing, that could be a product that warrants a reference badge. So we'll see where we go.
Also, in black at least, mighty purdy.
Yes, it's a fantastic looking speaker in the black. Not sold on the white, really. It's a bit big and obvious, but in the black.
I was looking at it in the video, and it's got a big chunked cow of it on the top as well.
Yeah, it's rubbish, isn't it? It's but the black looks fantastic. Can I also say that when hopefully that video isn't too enormous to go up? Apologies, Phil.
It's done, and I've had to listen to Mr. Reichert 2 or 3 times now, going through and editing that. So I'm quite affair with the speaker now. I know all about it. I could even write a review on it.
Can I just say that Steve Reichert has been the PR and marketing chap for Armour Home Electronics as a whole, so Q Acoustics, QED, Grado and such for a long, and before that he was working for Arcam. He originally started working for Audio T a million years ago. He sort of let slip, he sort of revealed quite surprisingly at the show that he was sort of here because he wanted to be there. He's retired. Whilst I have to say this is an altogether better way of losing someone from the industry than it was with Alan, that's still a tremendous loss. He was one of the all-round good guys, and he had, in some ways, he was like Steve is like Alan. He had a genuine sense of showmanship at the show. He loves the stuff he's demonstrating. It's all about the toys. It's all about, you know, and the difference with obviously up until this pair of loudspeakers is that Q Acoustics was doing it with products that you could afford, and was still doing incredible demonstrations. So obviously I want to wish Steve the best in his retirement if he's listening and all that, but he is a considerable loss to our industry.
Yes, it's been a number of years since I last stood face to face with him, but it was always fun going along and seeing one of his demos, because, like you say, a bit of a showman. He likes to stand up in front of a crowd and show off his wares, and 9 times out of 10 the product was always pretty good as well. So he will be a bit of a mess.
But best of luck in your retirement, Steve, and all that. So I will say, on a strictly personal level, the Concept 500 was narrowly edged out as my favourite speaker at the show. There was another new product breaking cover. That was from a speaker company, actually not a million miles away, from Phil's house, somewhere in County Durham, called Kudos. Now, they've been around for some years, and they've released a smaller version. I do stress that smaller is a relative term here, of their flagship Titan loudspeaker. It's called the Titan 707, so it sounds like it belongs in a manga cartoon. But it sounded absolutely brilliant. It's one of those ones where, you know, beyond, you listen to certain products, obviously in the more subjective area of 2-channel listening especially, you listen to a product and beyond, you know, the technology that's gone into it and so on and so forth, you just listen to it and think, that sounds right. That speaker sound was exactly that. It just sounded right. Really, really impressed with that. Admittedly, at £11,000, it probably ought to sound some cop. But yeah, that was just the loveliest sounding product at the show. And it takes us into a sort of interesting point, because this is the most contradictory thing about Bristol, in so much as I completely agree that vision has withered away, and I do think that's a problem. I'm not so in my own little world that I don't think that it needs addressing. But I still find it extraordinary that a month after CES, in what is still, broadly speaking, a regional show, we had quite significant products being shown off for the first time. I don't necessarily mean the Q Acoustics. I mean, that had its announcement and its launch. We'd been given the news stories late last year and so on and so forth. And I believe in some way, shape or form, I think it made it to America. But that Kudos, that's the first time anyone anywhere had seen it. And Riga decided that Bristol was going to be the place where they were going to, unleash 3 new physical products and some other bits and bobs as well. I still find that that's really quite extraordinary, and its own way quite encouraging as well. So if we could balance that a bit better, against all the odds, Bristol would still be would be a great show. As it is from my perspective, it's a bloody good one. And from Steve's perspective, it's not quite such a good one. But, I think with a bit of work, it could be really quite something.
I think the problem is that once you start getting the snowball effect of people not turning up head, the likes of Epson and Yamaha and so on not being there, it's harder to get them to come back again. And
there is an element of that.
It's been let to go that way for a number of years now, and I think it's time that they opened up the show. So it wasn't just an Audio T thing, but Well,
it's complicated because there clearly are exhibitors there who are not Audio T stockists. I mean, the thing is that they do seem to be up in the gods. I mean, Audio Note was there. I mean, Audio Note's retail arrangements are very much their own business, but they're emphatically not an Audio T company. And there were other people there with some products, but I think the problem is, it's a world of difference letting some small, men in a shed, or several men in a shed operations in through the doors for the upper floors. But it's more, I guess it's more a problem if it's a big company a multinational which isn't currently doing very much with audio T. I grant you that's an issue.
So I guess the thing going for Bristol is the fact that it's been running for 30 years and it is the only major UK show that's left. It has survived, where every other show that I'm aware of, has been around for maybe 5-6 years and then disappeared again. So, there used to be shows up in Manchester. There used to be a number of shows in London, which have all seemed to have disappeared. So, it's stayed the test of time, and who knows, it might be around for quite a bit longer. It would just be nice, I think, from our point of view, being an AV forum, that we'd like to see a bit more AV. But if you're
a bit more vision to balance out the sound.
Yeah, that would be good. Right, so let's move things on and let's switch what we're talking about. See what I did there?
Nice.
Right, so Mark, the Nintendo Switch, it launches this week. You'll be there at midnight to buy one.
No, I won't. I know that'll shock you.
That means it's doomed. If you're not buying it, no one is.
Yeah, first Nintendo console, I think, since the SNES that I haven't been there, ready at launch. For a variety of reasons. But it's out March 3rd. All the embargoes for previews are over, so we're getting a lot of new information out there, but obviously there's a lot left to be said. Reviews should be starting to trickle through places as it launches. Early impressions seem to be very good with regards to hardware, which has occasionally let Nintendo down. If you look at, say, the 3DS or the DS, the first iteration is usually the one with very kind of rough edges that need to be softened with any kind of further revisions. The issue really is a question of whether there are the games on it that you want or not. And for me, as a Wii U owner, and I look at Zelda and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Lego City Undercover, and these are games that I'm either going to play or have played on the Wii U. So there's less of a kind of incentive there for me. I think it's, they're pushing hard for it to be marketed as home console and as a handheld, but ultimately it does seem to make much more sense as a very, very powerful handheld, that you can take the console experience with you anywhere. That's a huge selling point, and that's still something that the other manufacturers don't have. Sony have kind of pulled away from their PSP and Vita gamble. Microsoft never even really pushed into the portable sphere, so that kind of tells you how tough it is, and a certain dedication for portable gamers and the franchises that they love. Things like your Monster Hunters, things like Pokemon series, those shift units. But as far as kind of features go, it seems like very much this was something that needed to be pushed out a little bit later, but they've gone with as late as they possibly could to hit this financial year. So 2 million units worldwide for launch. It's not a great amount, but they needed to put something out this year as it had been promised. With the Wii U already having been practically killed off beforehand, there's lack of Miiverse. Street Pass is gone as well. For launch, you're not going to have an internet browser, which it's still a tablet of sorts. No Netflix, no video apps of any kind for launch. eShop though should be there in an update, but no virtual console. So they're leaving lots out, and you would assume in the run up to E3 and pushing into the holiday seasons when a new Mario will be out, that's the time when they'll slowly kind of build momentum. It very much seems to be launching to please shareholders and to mop up a few of the gamers who couldn't bring themselves to buy a Wii U at the price that they were, or those who are just eager for a more powerful handheld. But yeah, thus far, the previews, other than a few minor niggles surrounding the little detachable Joy-Cons with regards disconnections and a question mark over the solidity of them being attached, it seems to be quite optimistic.
And what kind of money is this going for?
280.
Ouch.
Yeah, exactly. But then, it's very much ouch for a home console when you put it against the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One as well. And you consider also with the Xbox One S, you're getting that UHD Blu-ray player as well in there. So, yeah, it looks a poor value proposition in that respect. However, when you put it against tablets out there, when you put it against kind of mobile technology, then it looks a little bit better. The problem is that people will look at that high price point and consider certain aspects of it that they didn't want. Things like the detachable Joy-Cons, which can be used for local multiplayer. So you put a little tablet up and then each can use this tiny little mini controller, or, the motion control aspect of it. Those are things that for a certain market, they just wanted the most powerful handheld Nintendo could make and get it as close to 200 to 250 that they could. It's when you consider the fact that the little detachable Joy-Cons, when put in the plastic grip that comes with it, isn't an ideal way to play. So a lot of people will be thinking about buying the Pro controller as well, which is the only way that they can get a proper D-pad as well, because with the Joy-Cons, they've had to do without a traditional directional pad in order to make them symmetrical so that two people can play at the same time. So people would want to buy a Pro pad, and then when you add in a game, then you're probably looking at best part of £400.
Ouch!
Exactly, and this is also one of the problems with launching mid-generation, is the fact that new consoles always launch, their games come out and they stick at the high price. When something comes out and it's RRP of $59.99, it tends to stick close to that. Whereas now that we're midway through a generation with PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, a £60 game comes out, you can be guaranteed you're picking up for £40. A lot of people wait a couple of weeks and deals with supermarkets, 35, that kind of thing isn't going to happen. And it does seem like the accessories as well are very much prohibitively priced. But, if you're viewing it more as the powerful handheld that it is, then you could perhaps forego the Pro controller, and then it comes with many other benefits.
As someone who doesn't spend a lot of time gaming or in the gaming world and all the rest of it, it always seems to me that Nintendo stick out like a sore thumb because they seem to be the one company who never learn any lessons, and they will occasionally have a massive hit and then forget the whole reason why they had a massive hit. And it seems to me that the last massive thing that they had was the Wii, and that was cheap. It appealed to a wide audience, and it was simple, and there was good games on it. So when it comes to the Switch, it looks like it's a complete and utter reverse of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the problem with the fact they're trying to consolidate home console and portable in one, and so therefore you're always going to end up either with a kind of you're pushing the boundaries of mobile technology, but then you've got an underpowered home console, and so therefore it looks overpriced for one, but more reasonable for the other. They're learning in regards, how to monetize things. I mean, this Zelda will be the first one that has DLC downloadable content, so you'll buy a separate season pass for a certain amount of that content. I think it's going to be about £17. Also, online multiplayer is going to be behind a paywall, and we've yet to hear about that. So, there are things that they are learning, and with the push into mobile games as well, on Android and iOS, they're certainly finding other revenue streams. The question is, though, whether people are seeing enough value left in the fact that, Nintendo consoles do seem to be getting dwindling third-party support, and, it's yet to be seen whether a certain amount of those companies that were making games for the DS and the like, have they migrated more towards mobile phones, and how much of that third party support they'll still have. But there's always a market for a Nintendo console, because there's always a market for a Zelda, for a Mario, and if they bring certain things out which weren't there for the Wii U, if you see a Metroid, if you see a proper Animal Crossing which makes sense for a mobile device that's also online enabled, those kind of things will sell it, and it will come down in price at some point, and that's probably when I'll get it.
Right. So you think you'll last that long, do you? You're going to hold out that long? Because I think, give it a week or two and some positive press and so on, I think you'll succumb, Mark. I think you'll go and buy one.
I'm surprised I'll last that long, to be honest. But I totted it
honest.
I totted it up the other day, and I think it's 15 Nintendo consoles I've owned in one form or another, and that includes duplicates from different regions. And so I'm resolute this time. I'm absolutely sure, because, again, I'm viewing it as a handheld. And when it comes to Nintendo handhelds, the first version is usually the poorest. You know, the 3DS, I bought a 3DS, and then when the 3DS XL came out, I thought, why did I waste that money? The DS, albeit my DS is still going and it hasn't died the same way DS Lites have. However, the DS Lite was sleeker, it looked better, it was all round just a better looking console. And I think surely at some point there's got to be either a revision or there will be a slightly different SKU that maybe, I mean, it might do without the dock. I don't know. Some people seem to think that's mad. They would go without that as it's a key selling factor that you can use it at home and away. But a portable only Switch would just be perfect for me.
How much does a good nick first original Game Boy cost these days?
Oh, I don't know about that. I know it's probably be more than I traded mine in for. And I was annoyed at that.
Every now and again, I just get nostalgic. I mean, I know you can emulate all of it, but it's not the same as holding an original Game Boy.
You could hollow it out and stick in something like a Raspberry Pi or something like that.
I suppose, to be fair, someone would have inevitably measured one with a micrometer. You could probably 3D print it and then, as you say, do something a bit more intriguing on the inside of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, the most expensive ones are the ones where the plastic is good. Because what happened with all of the old, everyone had a SNES and put it by a window or something like that, and it turned yellow. There are ways, I think it's to do with baking soda or something like that, that you can remove that. But I believe, as long as the plastic is good and it's not brittle and yellow, then they go for good money, I think.
There's a real thing for nostalgic tech at the minute, isn't there? I mean, we were talking last week, Ed, about the Technics turntable, which really it's a design from the 1970s. Internally, it's nothing like the original from the 70s, but there's got that design. Nokia have just announced the 3310 again.
Yep.
I've just been looking at that on the BBC website, and it's only going to be £55. And you think, well, just for a second phone or an emergency phone.
Do you know what? My father-in-law will be all over that.
Yeah.
As far as he's concerned, that's all the phone he ever needs.
Yeah, but it's funny how nostalgic tech is making a bit of a comeback at the minute. So, talking about that, Ed, you've had your car for a week now. Is it everything that you hoped it was going to be?
This weekend, it and I bonded properly, man and machine, because I've driven it since Thursday evening. I've driven it 335 miles. In all sorts of different conditions, night and day, different roads, heavy traffic, light traffic, and it's working now. There is a road between the A34 and Andover in Hampshire. It's called the A343. It runs through Highclere, where Highclere Castle, which is Downton Abbey, is, and so on and so forth. It's one of the nicest roads in Great Britain. It's not like hairpin bends and dramatics like that, but it just flows beautifully. And I was heading through Highclere, and there was a Volkswagen Sirocco, like 8 inches off the rear bumper of the car, which is tiresome because it was a 30-mile-an-hour limit, and I was doing 30 miles an hour. I find that very, very annoying. On the other side of it, I might have put a bit of a sprint on. I'm not going to say any more than that. And they felt inclined to follow, and so on and so forth. And I'm not. It was just fabulous. It really, really is a ridiculously enjoyable car to take by the scruff of the neck. There's no getting around it. And then I found that after all of that, so coming out of Bristol, motorways, driving with a bit of enthusiasm, etc., and so on and so forth, parked up at the end of it, and I'd done 37 miles to the gallon. I'm getting.
You weren't doing that on the way into Bristol, were you?
No, you and I were doing 3.
I spent about 45 minutes with Ed right behind me in his car, and I think we got 4 miles in an hour, didn't we? Yeah.
Oh, that was about it. Yes. But like this, Ford really. I don't. Does your Mustang do this, Phil? If you have the miles per gallon indicator on what it's doing at the time, once you drop below 2 miles an hour, it switches from miles per gallon to weight of fuel it's consuming per hour, just to really depress you that you're burning fuel to no purpose.
No, it's Ed. I kind of
have you blanked that off? Have you masking tape
over it?
No, basically, I have it on, and it tells me how many miles to the gallon I'm getting, and that's all I need to know. I don't need to know anything else. I just need to know if it's in single figures or double figures. That's all.
But no, as I say, I mean, actually, being stuck in traffic, it was, again, it's little things like, obviously manual cars aren't great fun when you're stuck in traffic, but if you're literally in bumper to bumper stuff where you only move intermittently, to just get the car rolling, you don't need to touch the throttle. As long as you don't just step off the clutch, it will just move. You only need to have one foot on the go. It's little things like that. It's an incredibly easy car to just bimble around in, and then if you feel like it, it's ridiculously good fun. So, and my son loves it. So it didn't depress you on Friday that Ford have announced the new model, and it's not at all. By the time the lease on that one is up, we'll have the reviews in, we'll have some of the owner feedback in, all of the early niggles and production issues that need to be sorted with any modern car, they'll all be squared away, and I'll consider it on its own merit. I'm pleased when you sent me it that they haven't gone for tuning the 1 litre engine to like 1 billion horsepower, and they've decided to go for a slightly bigger one. I think that's a very good decision. I will consider it on its own merit, but for the moment I am utterly unconcerned what the new one's like, because the outgoing one is bloody marvellous.
Well, I got mine's all cameraed up this week, so it's now hardwired for parking mode because they are doing building work outside my place, so I can't park my car outside the house. So normally I can sit where I'm sitting at the moment and look out the window and see it, and see that it's all right. There's now mobile traffic lights there at the moment, and it's going to be there till September. And I have to park quite a bit away from the house now, and it's not the kind of car that just fades into the crowd. So I have gone for a ThinkWare 770 dash cam, two channel, one on the rear, one on the front, hardwired into parking mode, just to give me that peace of mind. Okay, it's parked out a wee bit away, but if somebody does bump it or hit it or whatever, it should record it. So, yeah.
Fair enough. I think that's very wise. And your position, I'd probably do exactly the same. So, yes. So I think that the bulletin for people who have zoned out, and this hopefully means that you'll tune back in again. I think the consensus is that the Ford contingent of AVForums is fairly happy with our decision-making process. Go us.
I'm just trying to remember, Ed. You just, the Ford contingent. Brian May did a song, didn't he, for Ford?
Driven by You. Do you know my dad owns the 7-inch single of that.
Everything I do is driven by you.
He owns pretty much everything that's been done by Queen or Queen's artist solo projects, including the obscure and, it must be said, shit solo albums by Roger Taylor. And he has the soundtrack to the Biggles film, which, as I understand it, is face-bendingly rare, principally because it's shit. Look, it's now, just for the record, it's 9:05. I'm on beer number 4.
Yeah,
I'm drinking something called Zlatý Bazant, and it's from Slovakia, and it's very Moorish.
Okay, well, you're going to have some more of that, and we'll move on, and we'll do movie news next. Okay, so moving on, it's coming to the end of February, and I am in profit when it comes to the unlimited card, unlike Steve, who is... I guess
I will just have broken even by the end of the month because I'm seeing Logan on Tuesday night. So.
Okay. So yeah, we're both in quite well there. And the last picture that I went to see was John Wick, Chapter 2. I've been looking forward to this for a while. The original film wasn't one that I had any knowledge of, actually, Steve, until the disc came out. And I only took note because it was one of the first Blu-rays to come out with a Dolby Atmos soundtrack. And that was my introduction to the world of John Wick, and I have to say that the original film definitely was well worth the time and effort. It did feel like they ran out of money halfway through. You kind of got that feeling with the original film. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but the ending wasn't all that it could have been, and certainly it felt like they'd done everything they wanted to do up to that point, and the ending was just a way of getting out of it, basically. Plus, they didn't have the budget to do anything spectacular. This time around, though, they've certainly had the budget. And I guess the problem with that is that the temptation is always to turn it up to 11 on the second time out. And that they certainly have done that. I mean, the film starts straight away with an action scene. Quite quite heartbreaking action scene actually. If you're a fan of 1968 Eleanor Mustangs, seeing that one getting battered to pieces was heartbreaking, but it kind of hit that pace and then it kept it all the way through. And I guess the problem for some people, I've certainly read some of the feedback, is that they felt it got a bit samey, and I suppose to a certain extent there is 2 missions in this film and they are kind of samey, but then when you're talking about the world of John Wick, it is gun porn, it is, hyper martial arts style / gunplay / Matrix, and Morpheus turns up in this one, which was when Lawrence Fishburne turned up, I just couldn't get Morpheus out of my head at that point, which was kind of strange. But again, this time around, what really worked for me, not only was the action a lot better, but not only was the choreography breathtaking. The fight choreography was breathtaking at times. The number of headshots, unbelievable. They really did turn the dial up. But the other thing was the mythology, the world of the hitman, the cosmopolitan, the fact that they changed locations. You got to see John go and pick his weapons of choice, and you got to see a bit more of that world. That was a real highlight for me with this film, and I know you're going to come in with your bits and pieces, Steve, but for me, I thought it was a solid 8 out of 10. I could see why some people would think it was quite repetitive, because it was like 2 separate missions and they were quite similar. But it's a John Wick film. You watch it for headshots, and there was plenty of headshots.
Yeah, there were indeed. I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first film, partly because I just really liked the first film's clarity and focus. They steal his dog, they kill his dog, they steal his car, and he kills everybody in revenge. And I kind of I love a good revenge thriller, and I think it is an absolute classic thriller, beautifully made. None of this shaky cam, none of these fast cuts to try and hide things. It's all done in single takes with a really professional stunt crew, directed by 2 guys who've been doing second unit and stunts for decades, who really know what they're doing. And I thought and Keanu, absolutely fantastic in the part. He's been doing these action roles for decades as well. He's highly trained in terms of how to handle weapons and to handle himself. For a guy who's 53, he's in amazing shape, and he absolutely nailed the part. It's easily the best film that Keanu's done in a long time. So coming off the back of that, it was always going to be hard to do it again without A, being repetitive, and B, just turning up the volume to 11. So what they did do, which is the bit you mentioned, Phil, that I really liked, is that they expanded the mythology of the world in which John Wick lives. The whole idea of the gold coins, the hotel, sort of the rules of these professional hitmen and that kind of thing. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. There is some fantastic action in it. It's clearly set up fairly open-ended endings, so it does well, and it has been doing quite well at the box office. I'm sure there'll be a third one. And yeah, I did enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoyed the film. I tell you what I'd like to see, because I don't think they've really done, and I suppose it's probably a budgetary thing, but what I'd like to see them do is a full-on, no-holes-barred car chase in the third one. There's been a bit of car chasing in both films, and the stunt work's been really good. But I'd love to see them do like a massive, no-holes-barred super car chase, a bit like the freeway chase in The Matrix Reloaded, but only better. I'm sure they were involved in that because they worked on the Matrix movies, but I'd like to see them do that. But yeah, I think 7 or 8 out of 10, definitely. I did enjoy it. I'm looking forward to getting it on disc. For me, I'd like them to kill it off now. I know they're going to go and do a third film, it's already been announced and so on, but I just thought the ending was such and I'm not spoiling it in any way by saying this, the ending was such that I thought they could stop it now, and that'd be a good way to end it, and leave it open-ended, and then leave it for other people to or for viewers to make up their own mind in terms of what happens within that world and all the rest of it. There was quite a few niggles in there, like I say. I mean, Lawrence Fishburne turning up, that was very much Morpheus. You know what I mean? It didn't quite work. I didn't think it was very good casting on that part. I mean, he's a great actor, don't get me wrong, but putting those two together, you automatically think that. And there was some weak characterization in there. But again, we're talking about a John Wick film, which is basically all about body count. I want to know what the body count was, because it was certainly a lot higher than 70 odd, which the first film was. Massive. The other thing for me was everybody seemed to be a hitman, and where were the police officers? Where was the authorities and so on? Now I know there is a cop there, and he was in the first film, and he reprises his role in this film. But we're talking about like downtown New York and central New York and subway systems and that kind of thing, and
for a sense of realism, and again we're talking about John Wick films, so where is the sense of realism? But I just thought there could be a little bit more in it, if you know what I mean, in terms of the public that are around that are not part of this world that we're looking at, because obviously it's a bit like Muggles in Harry Potter. There's got to be some crossover there, you know what I mean, in terms of this world that we're looking at of John Wick and the real world, and the crossover, because the original pitch of the first film was that he got out of that world to go and marry his wife and try and live a normal life. So that had the power in the first film, and I just thought this time around, they turned it up to 11, but they could have brought a bit more realism into it, a bit more. This is central New York, so things are going to happen. It's Manhattan. There's cops on every corner in Manhattan. It just didn't feel right, and it felt like everybody else in the film was another hitman.
Yeah, there did seem to be an awful lot of hitmen wandering around the streets of New York. Far too many, I think. Apparently, the directors do address the police aspect, saying that the police don't interfere with the hitmen as long as we're killing each other and not killing civilians. And also, there might also be a hitman squad of their own within the police force. But anyway, it's there's certain there are niggles. It's not a perfect film, but it is a thoroughly enjoyable 2 hours of action and mayhem
and headshots
and a lot of headshots.
I wonder if it takes place in the same universe as the Person of Interest TV series, then, because then they address that really quite elegantly. That gets you thinking, doesn't it? Oh, okay, fine. I will get around to watching it, but once it comes out on disc, I'm not going into a cinema. It's full of people.
I found it really quite enjoyable, because obviously it's still opening week, and it was half term as well, so there weren't any kids in there, don't get me wrong. Obviously the parents had shoved the kids into the kids film and gone in to see John Wick or whatever, because it was quite a packed screening, and we're talking about 4:00 in the afternoon when I saw it, and it was quite packed out, but it was good with an audience. I really quite enjoyed the audience participation with this one, because there are some genuinely funny moments, and there's also some really squeamish moments, and it was great getting other people's reactions to that. In fact, there was a couple behind me, I think, that had enough, because they walked out 3/4 of the piece. And it is quite brutal, if you're not used to seeing, they really went to town with the blood squibs, that's all I'll say. And entrails.
What, more than the Expendables 2?
Yeah, and entrails flying everywhere and that kind of thing. I mean, it's done for comic effect, and it's really, really funny. But if you're not used to that, and you're not used to that, well, I could see why some people were getting up and walking out. But yeah, it was good fun. Right, so this Friday, what are we going to go and see?
Well, this Friday, the big film opening is Logan, which unfortunately has nothing to do with Logan's Run, as I think you pointed out a couple of weeks ago, Phil. This is the new film within the X-Men universe, so 20th Century Fox's X-Men universe. It's actually going to be Logan is the real name of Wolverine, so it's a Wolverine movie, and it's Hugh Jackman's last turn as Wolverine. We're doing it for 17 years. It's time to knock it on the head. And it's directed by James Mangold, who also directed The Wolverine, which was a very good Wolverine movie, actually. And it's also going to be, because it also stars Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier. And
his last time. Yeah, his last time
as that character as well. So both of them are bowing out. And the reason that Patrick Stewart is bowing out is he said that he thought the film was so good, so different, so emotional, that he just didn't see them topping it, and thought it was a good time to bow out. And it is going to be a very different X-Men film. This is R-rated in the sense of there's a strong language, very strong violence. This is a more adult take on not adult in the sense of Deadpool with sort of like knob gags and swearing and jokiness and fourth wall breaking. But this is a sort of a serious approach to an X-Men movie, taking an older, very tired and sort of battered and beaten Wolverine set a few years in the future, and an aging, very old, 90-year-old Professor Xavier who is suffering from dementia. So he's got this incredible, powerful mind, but he can't control it because he's losing control of his own mind. And Wolverine's got to look after him, which doesn't sound like a very great setup, I know. But apparently...
Last of the Summer Wine, isn't it?
Yeah, Last of the Summer Wine with...
Isn't Stephen Marchant in it as well? Just to add a welcome touch of bizarre West Country...
I do hope so, because that's always a pleasure in any film if Stephen Marchant's in it. Yes, it sounds like a strange setup, but looking at the trailer, it's a very different take. It looks really interesting. It's had excellent reviews. I'm seeing it on Tuesday night, like I said, and I'm actually quite looking forward to it. I think they nail it as a really emotional, sort of adult take on the comic book universe. I think that'd be really good.
Okay, if we don't like super hero movies, comic book movies, what can we get on Blu-ray and stay indoors and watch?
Quite an eclectic mix of films out actually this week. We've got Jack Reacher, Never Go Back, which is the sequel. Well, it's not a sequel. It's a new Jack Reacher film. It's not directly related to the one before Jack Reacher, which I've seen it and quite enjoyed. I thought the original Jack Reacher was better. I preferred the story and the director. I think gave it a harder edge. But although people complain about Tom Cruise being too short for the character of Jack Reacher and not physically built like the character described in the books, I do think he brings a nice intensity to the role. And he's very, very watchable in the part. So I quite enjoyed that. So if you're into action films, it's very good. I, Daniel Blake is obviously a piece of social commentary from Ken Loach. So if you're a fan of Ken Loach,
I know that people on the podcast have occasionally taken some solace from my wife's glib reviews of films. She does have one for I, Daniel Blake, and it's a 2-word review, and that is utter bollocks.
I think he's made some great films. I really like The Wind That Shakes the Barley. I think that's a cracking movie. And quite educational too, because I didn't really know much about the Irish Civil War that happened after they got independence from the UK. So I thought it was a great film. But some of his stuff is a bit polemic. What else have we got? We've got Train to Busan, which is a South Korean movie about zombies that actually apparently is very good. Has had excellent reviews. Generally well reviewed, and so if you like zombie films, this has apparently got an interesting take on it. Obviously, they're on a train and zombies working their way up the train, I think. So that might be worth checking out. We've also got Ouija: Origin of Evil, which is a prequel to the original film Ouija. And last but by no means least, we have a street cat named Bob, which even my wife didn't go and see, and she loves cats. So I can't imagine that's much gob.
But I'm sure if it comes out in UHD Blu-ray, Steve, you'll be first in line to buy that.
That might have to be the final straw.
Yeah, you keep saying that, and thus far,
I'm going to be sorely tested in the near future as we move on to the next subject.
Well, I mean, you were talking about Jack Reacher and Tom Cruise doing that. I mean, I finally got to see a trailer for the new Mummy that he's in. God, that looks awful, doesn't it? It looks absolutely dire.
Which film's
There's a new Mummy film. The
new Mummy film with Tom Cruise. It looks absolutely dire.
It seems like a strange choice for him. I mean, I don't know. Was the world crying out for another Mummy movie for a start? Not really. And Tom Cruise was like, that was a weird one. That
it is.
Saw the trailer too. And I was like,
yeah, bit strange that one. Anyway, UHD Blu-rays. What are you wasting your money on, Steve?
Well, there's a couple coming out that I am interested in getting. I would probably get anyway, regardless of the format, which is Passengers, which looked. I know it's not had great reviews. I know basically what the plot is. And
I have some serious issues with the plot.
Did
of
you
that
go
film.
and see it?
No, but I have since found out what the plot was, and
it's a bit rapey.
It is a bit. It's a bit.
It's got some.
Yeah, it's challenging, I think, would be the word.
Yeah, but it should look good.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. I forgot this is a UHD section. We're not bothered about the film.
Just sexual deviancy never had so good a contrast. Yeah, I know.
But T2 Trainspotting 2, I definitely will get as well. I think that'll be.
When's that out?
June.
Steve, we're in February. Why are we talking about this?
I'm just talking about what's coming out over the next few months. Passengers is in a couple of weeks, at least in the States, and a little bit later in this country. And then they've got some other stuff coming out, Expendables 1 and 2 in April, which, I might get. I actually quite like Expendables films.
Yeah, you'll buy them.
Guilty pleasure. And also the Mummy 1, 2 and 3, which obviously are being released coincide with the Mummy film, the one you just mentioned, Phil, coming out. So great. And also 310 to Yuma. Now, 310 to Yuma, actually, I think that was directed by James Mangold, who made Logan, in fact. And that's actually I think it's a cracking Western. I think it's a really good film. So I wouldn't mind picking that up on Ultra HD Blu-ray.
And when's that out?
Shall we say, if Steve balks at buying one of these films, shall we just buy it and send it? We'll just do a whip round on the podcast. So even if Steve says he's going to stop, he isn't. But so we then send it, and then that means he has to keep going because he still owns all of them.
Yeah,
but see, the thing is, new reviewer's badge for it. Even Steve Withers wouldn't buy this.
Certified not Withers approved. Just with you with a sad face and a thumb down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, everything he's mentioned in this roundup, so Passengers, Expendables 1 and 2, Mummy 1, 2 and 3, 3:10 to Yuma, and Trainspotting 2, he's already pre-ordered all of those. You can guarantee that.
I have not, but they are on my list.
Ooh, they're on your list.
Right, okay, we're starting to get well over time now, so Star Wars News Rogue One finally coming to Blu-ray. We kind of, the rumour was it was going to be the 28th of March. It wasn't too far off that rumour, actually. It's the 10th of April.
Yeah, it's actually the week before in the States too, so it was pretty close to that guesstimate. It's the 4th in the States and the 10th in the UK.
Yep. Last Jedi going for reshoots, which is nothing new these days. I don't know why they report these things like they did with Rogue One. Every film goes through reshoots.
They do, true. And obviously they would have scheduled in a series of reshoots for this, just like they did with The Force Awakens. But what's interesting is there are rumours going around, at least, that some of the reshoots are actually going to be aimed at addressing the fact that Carrie Fisher sadly died just in last year. And obviously she shot her stuff for The Last Jedi already before her death. But presumably they were planning on having her in the 9th one as well, in episode 9. And obviously they can't do that now. So they are, I think, working out a way of addressing that.
On-screen death, then.
Of blowing a ship up, which she's
probably. Yeah, probably.
yeah, something like that. Killing her in the 8th film.
Yeah. Okay, right. So, and obviously that's coming up December. And then the Han Solo movie, release date change.
Not necessarily a bad sign. I think possibly the reason they're doing this is they were originally going to actually do Last Jedi on the 25th of May this year rather than in December. But they pushed it back partly because Force Awakens did so well in a December slot. But also I think Rian Johnson said he needed a bit more time to finish the film. So fair enough. However, I don't think Rogue One's only done half the business of The Force Awakens in a December slot. So maybe they're thinking for a more sort of jokey, fun Han Solo movie, perhaps a summer release date is more applicable in terms of the time of the year, and it would appeal more. Because moving it forward 6 months, you think, well, maybe they're also thinking, well, this shoot's going well because it started shooting already, and they think they can do it. I mean, I guess it depends on how. These big effects movies do take a long time to do the effects for, so think they can do it by May. Great, because it means we've got to wait 6 more months for the next film.
Okay, cool. The thing that's got me is it's 40th anniversary of A New Hope. I hate that. It's Star Wars. 40th anniversary of Star Wars is this year, Steve.
Yep.
My big hope was that we were going to get the uncut, unsullied, unspecial edition, which definitely says that distribution is elsewhere.
Well, apparently, there's a couple of issues here. I think distribution still resides with 20th Century Fox until 2019. That's my personal opinion. And that would explain one reason why we haven't seen anything yet. But apparently the 4K remaster that was done of the special edition of Star Wars. The trims from the original negative are still in existence. They can restore Star Wars as it was originally, as in 77. If they want to, it will take time and it will cost money. So if Disney are going to do it, I guess they might spend the next couple of years doing it with the anticipation of doing something when they get the distribution rights back from Fox. Otherwise,
like they're ever going to lose money on it, to be clear, whatever it costs. Let's be honest. That is a null consideration. My concern for you guys would be that depending on how they're feeling, you'll get something cooked up for the 40th, and then you might get the originals for the 50th. So, stay calm.
Steve might not be around by then, eh?
Oh, he was like a little dynamo up and down the stairs at the Marriott. He's fine. He's doing lovely.
Stop stalling.
Can I give another plug for Zlati Bazant? It's really good. I mean, yeah, that's possibly the Zlati Bazant talking, but it's very Moorish.
Yeah, well, I'm on caffeine-free, no-calorie Diet Coke. So basically, black fizzy water.
You have my sympathies. I mean, I've got some Lek as well because Lek's a known quantity. But I went into the new Eastern European supermarket that's opened about a mile and a half from me, and it's an absolute fan. It's a lottery of mystery beers. But these Zlati Bazants are fantastic. £1.59 a can, that's quite significant. I mean, the Leks are £1 a go, which I think is excellent value for Lek. But no, I can wholeheartedly recommend it. And what's even better is it's got some proper bizarre English at the top of the can. and it simply says, "A golden pheasant in a field of ripened barley has always been a sign of rich and bountiful harvest."
Not for human consumption.
Oh, that's at the bottom of the can.
Yeah, in Slovakian.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Well, you see, I picked up a can of sugar-free Iron Brew the other day.
Oh, God.
The most disappointing thing I've ever had happen to me in a long time.
Right, though,
it's never this. You cannot possibly replace the 18, tablespoons of sugar that are in a can of Iron Brew. You take the sugar out. That's even with the sweeteners. It just didn't taste the same.
I'd love to know who pushed for that product. Like chocolate-free advent calendars as well next year.
Phil, did you see on Twitter when the Met Office tweeted, what was it, West Coast of Scotland battered by Storm Doris? And someone immediately replied, "You bastards would deep fry anything."
I missed that one. Yeah.
I suppose, you set it up, they'll knock it in, but nonetheless, I thought it was great.
Wrapping up, so let's go to TV. So Top Gear is back. The three guys coming back. It looks promising, Ed. I've got to say,
I'm guardedly optimistic.
The only person that I don't think I'm gelling with at the minute in these trailers is Rory. I think the other two, spot on. Chris Harris is just a natural. Absolute natural in front of a camera, as is Matt LeBlanc. So the only one I'm really kind of worried about a little bit is Rory. I don't know if he's going to...
Well, hang on a second. That then puts them in exactly the same position as the original three, because frankly, I have little or no time for Richard Hammond. I've never had any meaningful time for Richard Hammond. The only thing he did, which I thought was genuinely excellent, was when he sat
himself.
No, well, ironically related to that, when he sat down with Sterling Moss and they talked about the nature of recovering from monster accidents. You can find it online. It's not on iPlayer anymore, alas, but it's do you know what? It's genuinely excellent, because all of the pointless, sort of guard and machismo that Richard Hammond throws up on so many things, it's all gone, and it's just him and another guy who also Sterling Moss was also being actually really very honest and open. That was absolutely excellent. The rest of Hammond's output is utterly indifferent. So based on the principle that I only like 66% of the other trio, I'm quite happy to accept 66% of this trio. And I'll give Rory Reid the benefit of the doubt. I quite liked the piece he did in the original thing with the Mustangs. I thought he was quite well sorted in that. So here's hoping he can pull in a decent performance. The cinematography looked excellent. They looked like they found some bizarre and interesting vehicles. And I'll watch it. I make no bones about it. I have high hopes.
I think the biggest surprise for me was from the last series was Matt LeBlanc. I didn't realise how funny that guy was. I know he played, he was in Friends and he was funny in that, but that's a scripted show, you know what I mean?
And also he was playing someone who was an idiot.
Yeah, which is kind of easy to do, but he was genuinely really engaging and really, really funny. Really funny. It's a really sort of British sense of humour as well. I think he gets it, you know what I mean? And there was a couple of pieces that he did last season which were excellent. So really looking forward to that. So that's 5th of March, next Sunday.
Yep.
We don't have to record the podcast on a Sunday next week, do we?
No, but just so you know, I can't enjoy Zlati Bazant at 10 o'clock on a Friday morning. At least not yet, anyway.
Well, going on this performance, Ed, I'm quite happy to hear that.
Hooray!
You'll be slatting a Levant later, won't you?
I am one classy bastard, and don't you forget it. So I'm slotting nicely into what I believe to be. I want to fulfil the fast forward stereotypes. I need to get an aggressive and uncontrollable dog at some point as well. I think that's what I'm supposed to do, isn't it? I don't know. I'm confused. That said, you'll like this, Phil. I parked in the Cabot Street car park for the Bristol show on Friday morning. And I parked up. It was already quite busy, and I just parked around normal cars, Nissans, or the rest of it. The next morning, when I came back after leaving the hotel to just put my suitcase and stuff in it, next to my car, there was another Fiesta ST Then there were 2 Focus RSs, a Focus ST, a Sierra Cosworth, and a Capri Laser. It's like they emit some sort of pheromone to attract other Fords.
Well, that's it. If you've got a Ford hot hatch and you park anywhere in a car park, within minutes there's 3 or 4 people all parking next to you in different. Yeah, it's just. You just attract them, Ed. That's the thing.
Sorry, I digress. But no, I just thought that was quite amusing. I would have taken a photo, but obviously I only had my phone with me, not my proper camera, because I'd left that at the hotel because I was going to walk past, and so I couldn't get them all in shot, so didn't bother.
And on that bombshell, that's it for the AVForums podcast this week. My thanks to Ed Selley.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
Steve Withers.
How do I get out of this chicken shit outfit?
Oh, I can easily arrange that. And Mark Botwright.
What are we even talking about this for?
I've no idea, Mark. I give up. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Bookmark us. That's avforums.com for latest reviews, news and videos. And of course, leave us 5-star ratings on iTunes. Only if you enjoyed the show, but if you leave us a 5-star rating or just any rating on iTunes, it climbs us up the charts, it brings us new listeners, and we hit 30,000 downloads last week, which is double the normal. So I don't know if that's...
You poor bastard.
So...
What the hell happened there? But
it's either a bug in the system or we are attracting more listeners, and if you are a new listener, we really do appreciate the fact that
you've been had.
If you've lasted this long, well done to you. Well done indeed. I'm Phil Hinton. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.